How much more I changed my diet? I don't eat red meat. I don't eat fried food.
Maybe you should eat red meat. That helps.
Ah, see that? It's very Trumpian. I'd be like him. I'd go to McDonald's every day. I live to be 80-something.
You never know. Well, obviously there's some deficiency in your diet.
No, it's called genetics. Genetics. My mother had cholesterol through the roof.
David?
We're doing something wrong.
Yeah, it was up to 7.2, it's down to 7.0 now.
You must be doing something right. Must be knocking over that pizza.
Well, I did cut back a little bit.
You know what one of the keys is? Protein. And no snacks in between the dark protein.
What's wrong with that?
I know this, but I'm just telling you. And
How much weight can you cut back? Because I guess we're going to find out.
you know what? I should be the diabetic. But I've got really good genetics.
That's it. My mother and my grandmother had the same as me.
Yeah. Like I don't have high cholesterol. I have well-controlled blood pressure.
They just decided to help me. That's what they decided.
You know, I'm not diabetic, but when you think about it, I've had thyroid cancer, I've been parathyroid.
A maddening crowd from somewhere else, I guess. Who is it? I figured you were safe. Well, let us pray. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful, kindle within us the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit that we might be recreated and renew the face of the earth. Amen. That voice I recognize.
You got feedback through your phone.
Oh no, two Father Donalds and
I was going to say, two bishops. The digital.
well, I stopped it on my phone. This is bizarre.
It is.
Is it coming through the television?
Well, it's picking up, no, it's picking up the microphone.
Public relay speakers.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Weird.
Yeah, but now it's microphone.
But why would it, I still don't understand why it would be going through. Just keep it muted until we need it.
Okay, I'm going to start off with a quote. Christians must be aware that the issues they seek to address as a matter of discipleship might well be costly to them. But nonetheless, Christians must stand firm in their conviction, especially on behalf of those who are less and lost and least. The methodology of reaching such a goal should call the Christian to be flexible and to honor the basic values of every human person. This call has social implications, political implications, and prophetic implications. This witness proclaims that change can be implemented only through authentic faith and not to depend on other social structures. Advocating principles of God's justice, such as was done by Dr. Martin Luther King, is indeed prophetic and indeed costly. Let's be clear. To hear God's word is to hear him through someone else's life, through someone else's journey, not just the one we interpret for ourselves. I wrote that 40 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I was doing my thesis for my master's in sacred theology, and I had to go back and look at it today because of what we're talking about, and kind of got mad at myself. I didn't become this. So hopefully tonight I'll not try to make too much amends.
Wait, you think what you said before was bad?
No, I said it was good. I said what was bad is I didn't become what I wrote.
Oh.
Anyway, in case you're wondering, it was entitled "A New Catechetical Pedagogy for American Christians on Behalf of the Poor." I barely got my degree out of it. They couldn't get me out of there fast enough.
I was going to say, what sort of grade did you receive?
I got I graduated with a 4.0. This was in 1984, so at the height of liberation theology. So, anyhow, so
Is that about liberation theology?
what's that? At the height of liberation theology, and the churches struggle with it. So, I'm going to try to see if we can interweave some of this. Next slide, David. So, just for the sake of continuity, what is the series vision? The series vision is to help us move from talking about authentic discipleship to restoring it in our lives and our relationship with Christ and with others. It's not limited to our friends and families. It needs to extend to nations. Somebody might want to tell the people in Washington that. Stay in your chair. Anyway, Christ-centered reconciliation is the vocation, especially if you're going to say you're a Christ-centered country. And I did write about that. So how do you struggle with that in a multicultural, multiphasic economy, a multiphasic religious landscape? How do you do this as a Christian? Well, we're going to try to, bless you, that's what that was. We're going to try to pound that out. David? We started last week to figure out this should be an easier question than at first glance, only to find out it's not, because to get the answers to the questions that we're talking about, you've got to be willing to detach yourself. And the image they used was the wilderness. And again, they were very smart, and the authors of this series, they made sure that we didn't understand the wilderness as this kind of liberating, I'm going off to discover myself and gaze at my navel. That's not it at all. The wilderness is in the experience of Christ, the experience of John the Baptizer, and the experience of the apostles is to wrestle with absence. It's to wrestle with absence. And we do that if we're honest. We just have to understand where our wildernesses are. And I highlighted last week that there's more than this, but to my mind there's three. There's the wilderness of the mind, the wilderness of the heart, and the wilderness of the soul. You're not limited to one. You might find yourself in all three, and you might easily go back and forth between them. The wilderness of the soul is the one that we're probably most aware of in the life of the church, because we know in the Christian tradition there are two types of theology for spiritual growth. One is called cataphatic spirituality, and the other is called apophatic spirituality. Cataphatic is what we do here. It's very positive. It relies on the lives of the saints and the sacraments, and it seeks the universal dynamism of how God reveals himself in the church. The apophatic is much more difficult. Most Christians don't like it. It's very challenging. It's probably best epitomized in the writings, let's say, of John of the Cross in the West. There's a whole bunch of church fathers in the East, Maximus the Confessor being probably the most significant. The apophatic spirituality means we seek to encounter God not by what's around us and by what we have, but we seek to encounter God by the absences we find ourselves in. And that's very much the wilderness of the soul. And if you were trained the way I was trained in Roman Catholic Seminary, you found yourself probably closer to the apophatic experience than the cataphatic. I don't think most of you are ready for the apophatic wilderness. Okay, it's. Think so, Roberto?
Not today.
Not today. It's pretty tough. It's the command sergeant major deacon might be able to weather it, because he's used to being in the lean-to and underneath mud, and probably you too. But it's like the spirituality of the Marines. I mean, it's really tough, the apophatic. And so the challenge for the church has been to invite people to a cataphatic awareness of the mind, heart, and soul. And so that's why we give you people like Henry Nouwen to read. And Henry was a great purveyor of cataphatic spirituality, about the wholeness of the integration of the person. And if you ever had the opportunity to meet Henry, I mean, he just exuded it from him. He's one of those rare people, God rest his soul, that when you read the book and you meet the person, there's no dissonance. Henry's the book, and the book is Henry. I mean, he lives what he says. He speaks the way he writes. I mean, he was just an amazing guy. So these are the three components to encountering God: the heart, soul, and mind. So the church takes that, which is apophatic in some, and tries to make it a cataphatic, positive encounter for all. And that's what we do here. Most parishes do that. We try to give you a positive encounter. making Lent as positive as possible, using the liturgical seasons as images of growth. That's all part of cataphatic spirituality. The apophatic, through the absence of, it's actually a theology of negation. I'm trying not to get into too complicated about a theology of negation, which is exactly what Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross, both Carmelites, write about in the 15th century. If you ever read Teresa of Avila or John of the Cross, Teresa of Avila is a wonderful mystic of the church. These people lived on a whole different level that we don't comprehend. John of the Cross, even Francis of Assisi, towards the end of his life, lived in very much a mystical, apophatic experience. This is the guy running around, the sun's my brother and the moon's my sister, brother, sun, sister, moon. And we well, that's marvelous because it sounds so poetic. But in the apophatic universe, what it meant is that Francis of Assisi had detached himself so much from this world that he was totally connected to all the things of God. But his experience here was completely apophatic. So, why am I telling you all that? Our inclination is to run away from the wilderness. When we're challenged in our mind, so what's a mind wilderness? Theodicy is a mind wilderness. Why the good people suffer. When somebody you care about and somebody in your life and they're suffering and you are truly wrestling with God's grace and God's goodness, okay, that's the wilderness of the mind, because you are wrestling with a question that has no answer that will satisfy you. It has an answer, but the answer will not satisfy you. And of course, C.S. Lewis writes about this in his book, The Problem of Pain. And what does he say? That pain like that is going to be an unresolvable problem. There's a great scene in the play Mass Appeal. It's also a movie. Have you all seen it? The movie has Jack Lemmon in it, and he plays Father Farley. And he's, if you've never seen it, it's a great movie. It's a great play. And so he's in this very well-to-do Connecticut parish, and he gets sent a seminarian. And the seminarian is kind of like I was when I was writing that thesis. It's kind of on a cutting edge and kick ass and take names kind of sermon, and it's kind of how he operates. And there's a pastoral call. One of the matriarchs of the parish dies. And so he says, okay, Mark, that's the deacon, we're going to go out and we're going to do a pastoral call, and you're going to learn how we minister to these people in this situation. So they go out and they see the matriarch, and Jenny was 1,000 years old and matriarch of the parish. And Jack Lemmon's character, Father Farley, if you've ever taken pastoral care, is just saying ridiculous things, utterly ridiculous. Oh, the suffering you have will bring you close. Will bring you to a level with God, and there's nobody knows the trouble I've seen. He's making all these kind of pedantic quotes, and the deacon is looking at him like, "What the heck are you talking about?" Much like he does when I speak. So. They get out the door, and they get in the car. Want to leave there with her thinking she has inconsolable grief. She's going to feel better. We're going to feel better. He said, it's not about us feeling better. It's a great scene. It's a great scene. There are two great scenes. I'll tell you the other funny one. So Mark Dolson gives his sermon, first sermon, and it's a bloodbath. I mean, it's a bloodbath, and he's condemning them because they have money and all this sort of stuff. And they get in the sacristy, and Jack Lemmon's, what was that? He says, it was a sermon. Is that what you call it? That's a sermon? He said, that was not a sermon. That was a kick ass and take names. That's what that was. He says, is that what they taught you in seminary? He says, yeah. He said, well, what do you think a sermon should be? He said, a sermon should call them to think about God. He said, when you think about God, what do you think about? I said, well, I think about I went to church with my family when I was small. He says, yeah, okay. He says, and tell me about that. He says, well, after church, he said, the thing I remember the most about that, he said, is that we went to the bakery across the street and we got jelly donuts. And he says, that's a sermon. He says, what's a sermon? Jelly donuts. That's a sermon. If you've never seen it, you can get it on Amazon. It's a great movie, and it has some really funny scenes, and it also has some really sad scenes. And I won't give away at the end. I remember when that film came out, and I was in seminary, and it was and I was just, and I had, it was the week before I got tossed. It was the week before I got tossed, and most of you know I was asked to leave. I got asked to go to Rome. I said no. They interpreted that as you have no the establishment did. So I saw that movie. Now I remember thinking when I came out of Gradlone's office, now I know how Mark Dolson felt. Anyway, so what was the answer? Jelly donuts. All right, David, next slide, please. So, the wilderness of the soul, the wilderness of the heart, is this apophatic tension, and we're kind of going to go through some of that today. Repairing the breach actually has a lot to do with what I wrote when I took my master's. There's no way to get around that Jesus is on the side of the poor. There's just no way. You can't read the scriptures. Yes, he died for everybody. That's absolutely true. And God created all things. Absolutely true. But Jesus identifies always in the Gospels, and you can't read Luke's Gospel, especially. Jesus identifies with the poorest to the poor. Full stop. Full stop. He's on the side of the poor. The psalmist tells us that, right? In Psalm 130, the Lord, no, not 130. The Lord hears the cry of the poor. Well, does that mean he doesn't hear the cry of the rich? No, he hears everybody's cry. But he's particularly tuned. You know, when you tune in your hearing aid, he's particularly tuned to the cry of the poor. And these lessons kind of go to the heart of that. And so if you want to take those lessons for your study this week and kind of read through them and reflect on this, that's kind of what part of the process is. I know you do Bible studies on your own, but this is something for your own self. The picture of the guy hanging on, this is how it feels sometimes to us when we're faced with the wilderness. We're hanging on for dear life because we're afraid to let go and let God. And part of the apophatic way is to let go and let God. And that's the great challenge for us. And we're going to see that a little bit today. David, next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
Read us what
Yeah, sure. It's Genesis 15, 1 through 12, and 17 to 18. Psalm 27. One thing I ask is, Lord, I seek to dwell in the house of the Lord all my days. Philippians 3:17 to the end of the chapter. And Luke 13, 1 through 9.
Thank you.
Oh, have you do it. We're going to take a look at Luke 13, 1 through 9. If you have it on your phones, nobody carries the Bible anymore. On Luke 13, 1 through 9.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
And someone would like to read that. That would be fantastic. And you're going to say, what does this have to do with what we're talking about? Well, you'll see.
I got it.
Okay, please.
Now there were some present at that time who told Jesus about the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mixed with their sacrifices. Jesus answered, "Do you think that these Galileans were worse sinners than all the other Galileans because they suffered this way? I tell you, no. But unless you repent, you too will all perish. Or those 18 who died when the Tower of Babel fell on them,
Bless you.
do you think they were more guilty than all the others living in Jerusalem? I tell you no. But unless you repent, you too will all perish. Then he told this parable. A man had a fig tree growing in his vineyard, and he went to look for fruit on it, but did not find any. So he said to the man who took care of the vineyard, "For 3 years now I've been coming to look for fruit on this fig tree and haven't found any. Cut it down. Why should it use up the soil?" "Sir," the man replied, "leave it alone for 1 more year, and I'll dig it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit next year, fine. If not, then cut it down."
Well, we could spend the whole class on this text. Of course, it's 2 stories going on. First one is about what? First part is about what? Who's the biggest sinner?
I'm not so bad because they're worse.
Yeah. Now, yeah. Yeah. And that's really important for us because in the cataphatic universe, that's how we. And Jesus is trying to get people to fess up that the way they justify, or the point we justify what it is we do or don't do is by comparing it to someone else. Yeah, I screwed that up, but I didn't screw it up as badly as he did. So if you compare how badly he screwed it up, I did pretty well. Now,
In politics, it's called whataboutism.
correct.
What about that?
What about that? Now, problem is, on the first part of this is massive judgmentalism. It assumes we have working knowledge of someone else's sinful state, and therefore then give a grade on it. I mean, we have enough time wrestling with our own sinful state, let alone trying to decipher someone else's. And yet, that's kind of what we do. And what it does, it's all designed to say, I'm not doing so bad. Next slide, David. So what's the connection between the first part in 13:5 and then the story that we know well, the fig tree in 6-9? Well, it seems to me Jesus is calling us, as I just said, not to be judgmental. Because it's not just judgment about sin. If we get into this judgmentalism, it's not just sin that we judge. It's people's estate. It's their state of life. We assess whether they're good people or bad people. We determine whether they deserve what they have or they don't deserve what they have, irrespective of whether we actually have any knowledge about it. We go on impressions. If that person really wanted a job, he would go get one. Yeah? And what's the basis of that? What's the basis of that insight? The Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, CNN. We're talking about people. We need to be very careful of those who suffer persecution and misfortune. Our responsibility is to put ourselves in their shoes, not to judge their shoes. The first way to do that, as we're in the season of Lent, as worthy of pointing out, is to examine our lives. That's why on the first Sunday of Lent we do the exhortation, and every Sunday we do the Ten Commandments. Not that it's limited to the Ten Commandments, it's broader than that. But the idea is that by reflecting on those things, it might jumpstart, gee, I need to really take an examination of my life, what we call in the apophatic tradition for confession, the examination of conscience. And you can't repent of something if you haven't examined yourself of it. How can I repent of something I'm not clear that I've participated in it or not? And the only way I can be clear about it is if I've examined myself. And that requires examining the whole of our lives. And for most of us, it's probably not our actions that we have to worry about. It's our attitudes, for most of us. St. Paul said, I'm first among the guilty. Especially those who struggle. And, in most of the relationships that we have that are at discord, okay, they're at discord because there is a struggle with that person and I. It might be I've judged them in such a way that they have not met my expectations. And so because they've not met my expectations, there's friction and there's dissonance. And so that creates a gap between us in our relationship. There could be dissonance because I don't know what their story is, but I've concluded what their story is. And that creates a chasm. That creates a gap. And there are people who struggle in our lives for a host of reasons. We go by appearances, but we can not really use appearances as a final dictate. Because appearance is external. Information they give off is not multidimensional typically, it's one-dimensional. We don't know what's going on in their psyche, in their soul. We don't know what's going on in their wilderness. We don't know where their wilderness is. We don't know whether it's a wilderness of mind, a wilderness of soul, a wilderness of heart, or God forbid, a wilderness of all three. And so the judgment that Jesus is trying to get at in this first section, 1 through 5, is really in the relationship of 6 through 9 of the fruitless tree. What's happening in the story of the fruitless tree? Let's give it one more chance. Let's give it another shot. Let's give it another season. Who in this room would not like another chance? Everybody wants another chance. Everybody wants another shot. Everybody wants another at bat. Okay. So we want to have a landowner who says, let's give it a shot. The dilemma is, as the story yesterday for the lesson appointed for the Eucharist yesterday was the story of the debtors. You all know it well. Gary here owed the king $100,000. The king wiped the debt out. He's walking down the street. He meets Brookman, who owes him 25 cents. And he grabs Brookman by the collar and he says, "Give me the 25 cents. And he turns him upside down, trying to shake it out of him. There's nothing to shake out. And he calls the debtors police and throws him into debtors prison. It was mercy shown to him, but he does not turn around and reward that mercy to somebody else. That's somebody who does not care about the struggles of another. And so this is the dilemma we have. We want to have another chance, and yet very often when we are given the opportunity to engage somebody who is seeking another chance, what's our response? Nope. She really pissed me off. Or, I helped them the last time, they totally screwed me. You know, I always struggle with that because, you know, when Jesus says 70 times 7, you know, I don't think he's just talking about forgiveness in the philosophical sense. I think he's also talking about you got to go back to the well, and it's not always easy. Now, it doesn't mean you make yourself a sap, but there is a fine line between that and being a fool for Christ. And so I think that's the struggle here in these lessons. So what does that have to do with all of this? David, DeGay, please. Well, let's go to somebody who actually knew about this stuff. Take the path of our God, who teaches us to meet him in the hungry, in the thirsty, in the naked, in the sick, in the friend, in trouble. God teaches us to meet him there. So the interesting is, while we spend an enormous amount of time looking for love in all the wrong places, to quote the famous song, what Francis I was saying is, he's right in front of you. He's right in front of you. You just have to look, because there he is. Yeah, but that guy is asking for a glass of water. He could get a job. He's a young guy. Really? Did you know he's a schizophrenic and can't carry on a consecutive sentence? No, I didn't know he was schizophrenic. But you just said he could get a job. You made a judgment without information at the ready. You made an assessment. I know you're not going to like this.
No, I was actually going to comment. Doesn't judgment of others indicate an elevated opinion of ourselves?
Well, it often does, that I'm the judger and you're the judgee. I'm better than you are. You know, my Tesla's bigger than yours, that sort of stuff. Or it could also be the underside of that. I'm not anywhere near that, and so because I'm so bad, I'm going to make you look bad.
So what about this was, in your opinion, reflective of me?
I was only kidding. I was just trying to make a joke.
Once again, many true words spoken.
Oh, please. So you and Shakespeare. When I have a true word for you, I'll give it to you, not the word.
Infrequently, though that may be.
You look like the Pope now that I think about it. All right. Yes, I think that's right. It could be people who are in a position who see themselves on the above, but it could also be they're also compensating because they're not on that. They're on the underside. Matter of fact, whatever the underside is, they're below that.
Well, it also shows that we typically tend to judge people by using us as a standard.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the gold standard of what should be. And, you know, I just go back to the likes of, you know, that story I told about Francis of Assisi, or I think of the priest in the concentration camp.
Oh, yes.
What's that?
Bonhoeffer?
What's that?
Bonhoeffer?
No, not Bonhoeffer, the Roman Catholic priest, Maximilian Kolbe,
No.
who's, you know, who thought, I'm nobody, so let me put my life in there, you know, compared to this father and child. I mean, so, you know, there's, again, apophatic versus cataphatic. And we live in that tension a lot in our spiritual life. David? So we have some challenging questions ahead. I don't mean this in this class, but I mean in this Lent and in this spiritual life. Who are the people that you may consciously, I'm sorry, cut that off, or subconsciously judge to be responsible for their own misfortune? Who are they in your life? Who are they in your world that you say, you know, it's all they're doing? Problem is, that's all we back to this again today, it can't be just one person's misdoing. We live in a human community. And either by our apophatic response or absence, or our weak cataphatic response, we can actually contribute to another person's circumstances. You know, I remember when I was the prison chaplain at Polk Correctional when I was newly ordained, and every week I would go there and I would just pray on the way there that I didn't say something stupid. I mean, I was a new priest. I didn't know apples and cucumbers. They gave me 0 training for this. Not that I don't think you can ever really be trained for that sort of circumstance. And I would pray that I didn't say something stupid, meaning something judgmental. Because what you find out with these guys is, like you learn when you watch SVU and all these cop shows, is that the circumstances that drive these people to their behavior, yes, it's of their own doing, but there's other influences that affect them to the point that they lose control. And I realized that early on. And so I had to work really hard when I was doing that to, not to be judgmental. I mean, I remember hearing confessions, and I think I told some of you this at one point. And that's why I always say, all the years I've been in the parish, you should come to me to confession. There is nothing you're going to say that's going to be a problem. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing you're going to say that's going to shock me. Nothing you're going to say, I'm going to go, oh, that's amazing. Because you cannot come close to what I heard there. It's not possible. Not possible. And I remember sitting there in the chapel, hearing the first couple of confessions. I mean, I'm listening because I got to give counsel and absolution, and I'm also asking God, please give me the grace not to go, I can't believe you did that. Really? I mean, now it's a different world, and you go, everything's on social media, but back then you didn't hear about a lot of this stuff. I mean, and I heard stories of people killing their mothers and the reasons they get, like, holy cow. It wasn't my place to judge them. It was my place to hear their confessions, to give them counsel, to see if they were repentant. And if they were repentant, their amendment of life was taken care of already. They weren't going anywhere. They weren't going anywhere. They had to figure out how to amend their life in this community of violence and oppression 24/7. That was clear. So none of you, to my knowledge, are in those sort of dire circumstances with other people. You're not there. You're not hearing anything going, oh my God, this is the most inhuman thing I've ever heard of. No, you're dealing with your sister who at your mother's funeral or your father's funeral said stupid things to your kid during the wake. Sound roughly familiar to anybody? Or at the birthday party, or at the wedding anniversary. I mean, just pick a scenario. Doesn't matter, because you know what? It's all the same. It's all the same bit. And we've got to figure out what makes a person do that. Why would you say something like that? Well, most people say hurtful things because why? They're hurt. They're hurt. I am hurt, therefore you should hurt. Because misery loves company.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Hurt people, hurt people. And the thing about Christian spirituality and the apophatic tradition is that it reminds us something we don't like to be reminded of, we're all hurting. Now the dilemma is we live in a culture that works very hard to get you to deny that you're in any sort of pain. We try to insulate ourselves from any sort of pain through escapism, social media, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. Okay? Going to Disney, whatever it is. I'm not putting on Disney, but we go to escape things. Everybody's got their own escape valve. Everybody's got an escape valve. You know, because we're hurting. But does that escape valve put us in a position to pull back from hurting others and judging others, or does it liberate us to hurt and judge others? And very often our escape valve liberates us to hurt others. So, just for example, I put this one up here because it's fairly generic. How many, we've all driven by this? Yeah? Okay. What goes through your mind when you see that?
Probably phony, collecting $400 a week.
Probably.
Seriously, that's a problem in the community today.
But you don't know that.
No, you don't.
So, but you made a judgment.
No, I made a statement about fact.
No, I said, well, when you see somebody else, what do you think?
They're
How
down
do
there.
I judge if they're genuinely?
But you don't know that.
So,
We're gonna be judged on what we do.
Mhm.
We can only be judged by what we do. We can't be judged by
When,
what that person does.
Quite so.
So-
My,
So
I'm sorry.
I look at that,
Yeah?
and often I feel helpless
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what to do. I've done things like carried gift cards in my thing, and I don't carry cash, and I don't necessarily, and I don't have the gifts to be able to go up to this person and talk to them, and sometimes I'm afraid being a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel increasingly helpless in those situations, and I don't want to turn away from them, you know, but I don't want to smile when I'm in my car because they're going to think I have something for them that I don't have.
Fair enough.
And, but I don't want to be hard-hearted,
Mm-hmm. Fair
you
enough.
know, and like, I've helped homeless people who've collapsed and
Really?
called 911 and gotten them to the hospital. You know, in those situations, I can help because I'm a nurse and I know what to do. But I just,
My sainted grandmother, my father's mother, I think she had a 4th grade education. She lived in a cold water flat in, means that it had no hot water in Brooklyn, right by the docks, the Navy Yard. And she's an amazing woman because in all the years, I never heard her say a negative word about anybody. Ever. Ever. I remember we were in my grandfather's 1955 green Oldsmobile. They were picking, we didn't have a car when I was growing up, so they picked us up at the train station, Smith and 9th Street in Brooklyn. Wasn't very far to walk, but when, you know, you got four kids, you know, we're all over the place. So my grandfather and grandmother would come in the Oldsmobile and pick us up. And I remember us going under the bridge at 9th Street. I remember this like it was yesterday. I think it was the first time I ever saw a homeless person. I was probably about 7. And I would not have said the word, oh, there's a homeless person then, but clearly was somebody, here's the word we used to use in those days, he was a hobo. Okay.
I remember that, we all used that word.
And I remember saying, how do we help that hobo? And my grandmother said, you probably can't help him in any other way today but to stop and say a prayer that someone who can help him helps him. So why don't you stop right now and say a prayer, Kevin, that somebody comes and helps him. I never forgot that.
A different world, nonetheless. And I think part of the
Let me finish.
confusion we have.
That's the answer to Elizabeth's question, and that's the answer for everyone to escape judgment. The very least one can do is stop, pause, ask God's grace to be prevenient in somebody's heart to respond where you can't, for whatever reasons, because your own judgment, your own bias, your own inability, your age, your mobility, whatever it is. The one thing you can do, despite all those mitigating factors, is that you can stop and pray earnestly and sincerely. And that's what we did. Go ahead.
I think it's a symptom of the brokenness in society, which trust is out the window on so many levels.
Not
And-
question that, but you still have to do something. So what are you going to do?
Well, your response is give away McDonald's cards.
No, I just gave you my response. I just told you my response. I was abundantly clear what my response was.
What I did,
Hold on. The response is from everyone in this room. Stop and pray that someone who has the means and the wherewithal and the ability to meet the needs of that person. Everyone can do that. Josephine was spot on, dead correct. Now let me tell you what that kind of attitude brought about. When she died at the age of 77, okay, this woman never went anywhere. Never went anywhere. I mean, the furthest she went was New Jersey, across the bridge. If my grandfather was willing to drive, Wild Willie. We'll get into that. Her funeral at St. Thomas Aquinas Church in Flatbush was packed. The church that seats 1,000 people. Her funeral procession was 65 cars out to St. John's Cemetery of all different shades. 55 Oldsmobile, Valiant's falling apart. Because this woman would give advice like that all the time, and not in a Marie Barone sort of way of that sort of character. She was so soft spoken, and she would see the kids down on Nelson Street, and she would bake these awful Irish cookies, and they would come up the fire escape, and she would sit on the window of the fire escape and give cookies and say, "Give thanks to God today. Don't thank me. Give thanks to God." She was always catechizing, always witnessing in her very simple, loving, pedestrian way. And I've been a priest a long time, and I've done a lot of funerals for a lot of different people, but I've never seen anything like what happened when she died. Ever. And they all, she was buried in a crypt in St. John's Cemetery, and you couldn't get everybody in there. And it was raining, and they all stood in the rain. For this woman who had no more than a 4th grade education, who sewed flags for a living. Well, so what was the deal? She never judged who was responsible. She just didn't. It wasn't who she was as a person and as a disciple. And her simple counsel that I, with a PhD, would never think of giving is far better than anything I wrote in this. So this may spur many responses in our psyche, socially and culturally, etc. But our first responsibility, this is what I learned from her, our first responsibility is a spiritual response. That's our first responsibility. Next slide, David. Because why? Because we are responsible, according to our baptism, of upholding the dignity and integrity of every human person. Full stop. Everybody in this room promised that. So I didn't promise. I had people brought me to church. I was 6 months old. Yeah, but you've been in this place as long as I've been here, most of you, and you've at least renewed the baptismal covenant 4 or 5 times a year. And in that covenant, you make it clear that we are all God's beloved children. One thing I learned when I was a prison chaplain. Not to accept ourselves means not to recognize our deepest identity as children of God. In me, but also in you. So that's the foundational dimension of human dignity. We have our judgmentalism cannot take away the dignity of another person. Well, it can, and often does. But you talk about societal breakdown. That is the fundamental societal breakdown. The lack of dignity of personhood. The stratification of classes, the stratification of wealth creates imbalance. Imbalance creates judgment. It's just a fact of life. If you do not, I remember when I was teaching at graduate school. Don't try this, Roberto. It didn't go well for me. But I was teaching a graduate class to undergraduate. I was a graduate assistant. I was teaching as a graduate assistant to undergraduates. A required 9 credits. They had to take 9 credits of theology and 9 credits of philosophy at St. John's when I was writing this. And this was in 1982, 83, 84. So they were all business majors or pharmacy majors. And the class was every Tuesday and Thursday night for 90 minutes. They didn't want to be there for 90 minutes or any particular Tuesday or Thursday. Their answer to any question was basically boiled down to this: love or Mother Teresa. That was that they thought that should cover all the answers. It didn't matter what the question was. It's either love or Mother Teresa, because that's about all they knew. And it was so frustrating. It was so frustrating. So we were doing a discourse on the Last Judgment. And I got into all this social stratification and justification of judgment, especially in the business majors. It was really driving me nuts. So I thought, and I talked about the equity of God. Tried to get across on the equity of God, on dignity of human being. And I could have said, Mickey Mouse built a house, how many bricks did he use? It had no effect on him. So I decided the only way they're going to understand the equity of God was going to be a radical response from me. So I failed them all at the midterm. Everyone. Didn't matter what their grade was. Everyone from top to bottom, F.
Good idea.
Yeah, what?
Got their attention, I'm sure.
Got their attention, and the dean's attention, I might add. He called me in quite quickly. I barely got through writing this by that point. And they were outraged, of course. Now, I had their real grades. This was the only way to teach them. They said, that was unfair. I said, absolutely not. It was completely fair. I treated you all the same. It wasn't equitable, but it was fair. Oh. Well, what are you going to do about it? I said, no, it's not what I'm going to do about it. What are you going to do about it? This is how dignity escapes us. When we see ourselves separated from another, when we see ourselves better than another, as you said before, over and above another, the chasm begins. Yes, we're all different. We have different talents, we have different gifts, we have different resources. But just because you're a good organist and you're a good cellist doesn't make the organ better or the cello worse. It just makes you're an organist and you're a cellist. You're a colonel. He's a sergeant. He's got the gifts to be a sergeant, you've got the gifts to be a colonel. And you live into those gifts. And so it goes. Human dignity recognizes the possibilities of other people, but also the limits that we ourselves have. The limits that we ourselves have.
Since you just demoted him, I'm sure he doesn't feel good about
Who?
it. Sergeant Major.
Just like once a deacon, always a deacon.
Yeah,
Once a club sergeant, always a
that's
club
it.
sergeant.
So human dignity is at the core of this, David Duguay. So here's a lived experience for you to look at. I'm sure there'll be a commercial or some such thing.
No, most people miss. Get your domain name even if you're not ready to launch your business.
Why they have that skip button on there if it,
Just
They're
for
just
annoying.
messing you.
when you hit skip, it just stops.
What's the time on that commercial been?
0-1, it's done.
There we go.
Now here's 2, it's 2. 13 seconds.
I like this commercial better.
I think we're going to that.
Only for your
Are
little
you
white
judging
birthday.
the other Frosty?
Hey sir. Hey sir. Have you happened to see my daughter around anywhere? I lost her about 2 days ago.
No, I haven't seen your daughter.
Yeah, I've seen her, man. It's a really sad moment for me right now. Can't find her. We were shopping the other day and then we lost her pretty much. This girl right here in the picture, have you seen her anywhere?
No, I haven't seen her.
You haven't seen her? Okay. Alright, well man, have a good day, okay? Yeah.
Can I take the paper? If I ever see her, I'll give you a call with that paper over there.
Oh, okay, sure. Here, if you happen to see her anywhere, use the payphone here. I'll give you some money.
Oh, appreciate it,
No
yeah.
worries, man. I'll give you some money. I'll give you $1,000. Just use the payphone. Go drink something to eat, man. That's awesome.
Thank you, yeah, I'm really hungry.
There you go, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, sir. Hey, I came up to you earlier today with that paper.
Yes, I'm trying to help you get her back.
You've been out here the whole day holding that paper
That's right.
instead of that one, the cardboard.
I would rather hold up this side. Get your daughter back home.
But I've never seen anybody else. I've never seen anybody like you before in my life, man. You Do you know how much that means to me? What made you want to do that? Instead of you actually could have made a couple bucks and you could have gotten food, you could have ate. How long has this been situating?
Helping somebody instead of receiving is a better reward.
Man.
I know what it's like to be alone. I want to make sure you get home safe.
How long has this been situating?
This morning I had some food out of the trash can.
I always go out, I always help out the homeless, but I've never seen somebody like you in my lifetime. Come here, man. Give me a hug, man. Give me a hug. I've never seen that. Awesome, man. Give me a hug, man. That's awesome. Wow, man. I'm speechless. I can't speak right now.
Help you find your daughter. I can help you.
We were recording a video this whole time, right? And I was going up to different people and I was asking them, "Do you see my daughter?" I actually don't have a daughter. It was for video purposes only. And I'm sorry that I wasted your whole day, but you know what? I really want to reward you. I'm gonna give you $200, okay? $200. You need it more than me, man. This person I've never seen in my life, man. You need that way more than I do. Way more than I do.
Thank you very much. I didn't expect this.
No, man. Don't cry.
Do it.
Don't cry, man. Don't cry.
Wow, thank you.
No,
Yeah,
man.
sir.
It's perfectly fine. Don't cry, man. That means a lot to me, man. I've never seen anybody in my lifetime do this.
So, what was this for again?
It was, I have a YouTube channel and I record videos for it and I help out homeless and I do other stuff. Is it fine if I use this clip? Camera guy's right there. Right there.
I can't have my family know about me. I just don't want them to know about me.
Oh, nobody knows you're homeless?
No.
Seriously, it was such a beautiful video. We've been recording this whole day. Just doing that, it was so beautiful, man. Is it okay if I blur your face? Like, cover your face? Because
That's fine.
it's fine? That means a lot to me, man.
Yeah.
You cared more about my daughter, somebody that you don't even know about yourself. And you haven't eaten the whole day. And people who have everything, they get bored in 30 minutes, and they have everything. They have everything in their life. They have a 2-story house, everything that they need in their life. And then there's people like you who help out people.
Thankful to have this beautiful city.
That's awesome, right here. Go buy yourself a room for tonight, okay? Sleep good tonight, okay? Go eat.
Thank you very much.
No worries, man. Here, man. Go get a room, okay? Have a good day, okay, man?
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
That's called repairing the breach. So it was a social experiment. The guys do most of the talking is the researcher. See what people do. See what people do. And we saw what one person does. And you can make the argument it would be the person you would least expect to do it. Because whenever you see anyone like this, you see me. And he certainly saw that in the other person. It begs the question, therefore, as Christians, to what extent should it matter to us why a person may experience difficult circumstances or tragedy? And of course, the answer is what? There, for the grace of God, go. Aye. That's the answer.
You know, I deliver groceries to people, and I just thought it just fits with this, every time when you deliver it to, it's a job I'm doing because I have to, right?
Right.
It's not a fun job. It's a difficult job. And every time I deliver it to a mansion, the house that's clearly occupied by someone who's doing well, no tip, $1, $2. I delivered to an old woman, clearly on Social Security. She can't go get her groceries. She's not doing it for convenience. She can't anymore. She comes out with her walker. She gives me $10, $15. It seems to be always the people who have the least that are the most willing to share.
Often, not exclusively, but
Not
often.
exclusively, but it's embarrassing in this country, the greatest country in the world. The war on poverty We're supposed to be 1964. There's more people. In California, there's almost 5 million people that are poor. It's sad. Homeless people is, a lot of it is drugs and alcohol, but a lot of it is people that you know. It's sad.
So let's talk about poverty. David, next slide, please.
And what he said just now is so true. You don't want to know how true that is.
The gospel suggests that there are many tiers of poverty. TIERS levels, as opposed to TEARS, which is certainly true. There are tiers about poverty. If you look at the scriptures, I mean, I could unpack this, read about it all in this. There's material and physical poverty. You just articulated, Carlos. Lacking the basic necessities of food, clothing, shelter. Are we exempt from having care about that? The gospel tells us no, we're not exempt. There's also social and political marginalization. Being a lot of different ways to be crippled. You can be crippled by the system. Be lame or blind, cast out by society. You can be politically powerless. And we live in a country that's increasingly building that divide wider and wider. Now, some people actually choose poverty, choose to live with fewer possessions, join a religious community, take a vow of poverty. So poverty is not all negative in the Gospels. It's not negative. But when it's a choice, it's different when it's imposed upon you. Another type of poverty is loneliness. I talked about the first week that 10% of the population maintains they have no friends at all. 15% of the population thinks they have given thought to killing themselves at least once. Okay. That's the poverty of loneliness. Sometimes it comes about because of social awkwardness. Sometimes it comes about because of circumstances. Sometimes it comes about because of persecution. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of the gospel. And there are people that's true of. There's relational poverty, Luke 15, the brokenness, the breach that causes alienation from God, causes alienation from oneself, causes alienation from the community. So, I don't want to get too wrapped up into one level of poverty. What I want to say is, when you put all this together, just take a country like the United States and you put all this together. I was reading an article in The Spectator the other day. They were making the same assessment about the United Kingdom. And the author, Damian Thompson, said, if there's any time for the Church of England to step up and act like the church, when you consider all of this, it's now. He's quite right. I mean, I wouldn't hold my breath, but he's quite right. And the United Kingdom is nowhere near the size of the United States, and so magnify this out exponentially. Where's the church in this? Where's the church in speaking out against poverty? Where's the church in holding the culture accountable? Where's the church holding the government accountable? I mean, I know the present administration has Paula White giving them counsel, but let's not use that as a gauge of anything. Okay. This is real. People live in this every day. And sometimes it's isolated to one of these categories. Sometimes it's a cascading effect that one leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And you have then the need to repair a breach beyond your wildest imagination. David? Well, doesn't God care? If God cared, why would he allow this to happen? He's God. He can fix all this immediately. He's God. What's he waiting for? Well,
You have to live through trials and tribulations to get through this world. And everything's easy. If he just hands everything to you, then what are you going to be? Your
well,
own God?
that doesn't answer where's God in this.
Well, I'm saying that God gives you trials and tribulations through things, and he helps you through them.
Well, that's a dangerous God then, because if God gives him trials and tribulations, but him blessings, that's a fairly arbitrary God. So it's a God who plays favorites. Who wants to believe in a God who plays favorites?
Everybody has trials and tribulations.
Didn't say everybody has trials and tribulations. What I said is that if one guy has trials and tribulations, if God gives it, you said God gives it. If God may permit it, he may allow it, that's different than God giving it. If God gives blessings to one and curses to another, it's an arbitrary God that I'm out. If that's God, I'm out. And it illustrates the point that these things occur for a host of reasons. There's systemic evil. You know, Roberto talked about personal evil in the sermon 2 weeks ago. There's also a thing called systemic evil. That systems, even systems that are originally designed for good, can take on the persona of evil because of greed, because of gluttony, there's a whole host of reasons. So one of the problems you have in repairing the breach in these circumstances, whether it's any of those causes of poverty that I just highlighted, is that there's systemic evil. And can you identify systemic evil? Racism is a systemic evil. Huh? Can we all agree on that, hopefully, at this point in human society?
Yes.
Racism, bigotry, you know. You may not like a particular religion. You may not like a particular ethnicity because it doesn't appeal to you. You're entitled to your opinion. But when you systematize that for the purposes of bigotry and oppression and violence, you've crossed the line. And therein lies why, again, I'm just giving you information. Leo, especially, has criticized this administration on its immigration policy for that reason. It's systemic. From his point of view of Catholic social teaching, it reaches the point of systemic evil. And he's been very clear about that.
So to Carlos's point, since 1964, this country has spent trillions of dollars on the war against poverty. We're also the most giving nation on the planet. Private giving, corporate giving. Where's the fail point?
Where's the what?
Failing point. Why the failure to have an effect?
Why hasn't it been fixed yet?
Exactly.
Because with that, there are things like greed, envy, selfishness,
Human condition.
the human condition.
Frankly, if you look, in my opinion, partially, but if you look into these things, I think a lot of that is that the money is being spent on things that don't actually fix because there's a moral or philosophical issue with what would actually fix the issues. We spend money we spend all sorts of money on homelessness, but not on the actual solutions that academically have been proven in other countries to fix those solutions because we have a supposed ethical issue with them. In other words, frankly, with most homelessness, the best way to prevent homelessness is to simply up and give them homes. It's cheaper, it's quicker, it allows them to get their lives together. That's what fixes the issue, but we don't want to do that because that doesn't fit in line with our ethical standards.
Never just saw a man who said he has a family but doesn't want his face revealed. So he has a home.
Well, don't A squared plus B, just because God is
No,
love, love
I-
is blue, God is not blue.
I understand that.
Don't make the syllogism fit.
The point is,
He has a family that he's not in relationship with, that's what we know.
right, and
So-
that's why I've seen on the edge of the road. My point is, there's vast amounts of money that have been expended and continue to be expended without effective resolution.
Sometimes we do not have to use your term, effective resolution, because while there may be systemic programs, there's not empathy to go with it. To have a program without conviction does not fix anything other than throw money at it. You have to change the systemic inequality. You can't just say, let's paper up this. In the West, generally speaking, we fail to, this is directly out of my paper, we fail to properly understand the circumstances that conspire to keep people in poverty and disadvantage. We don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. I don't want to feel accountable for it. I don't want to feel bad about it. Just do something to fix it so I feel better. That's the Western approach, good, bad, or indifferent. And why that disadvantage occurs, why that discrimination happens, why that's so much part of the ecosystem we live in. And it's so far afield from what God desires for his creation. We have not been able to build that bridge. When I wrote this paper 40 years ago, we weren't able to build a bridge, and we're still not able to now. And it's because of these dynamics. Not because of not enough money, or it's not a good enough program. There's a systemic issue about compassion, empathy, and equality that prevents people from living this out. Not to mention things like greed, envy, etc. So, if you have a culture that pulls further and further away from its biblical values that it says it's built upon, no matter how much money you have in the system, if it's not value driven, it won't be fixed. It won't be fixed.
So there's the real crux of it. We think that solving the problem is a matter of economics and government policy, but it's not. It's a matter of getting the moral center of the country straight.
You won't heal the relationship with your sister-in-law unless it's a value driven. You won't heal the relationship with the poor unless it's a value driven. It's the same side of the coin. It's the same side of the coin. One is systemic, and it counts on an ecosystem of church and government and school and society, etc. One is intrapersonal. But they run on parallel tracks. They run on parallel tracks. And they end up in the same station. And that station is brokenness and a breach. And it takes a lot of time to do that. Kathy?
It makes me go back to that very first picture you had of the person whose sign said, cold, hungry, and homeless.
Yeah.
Something like that. It didn't say, I need money.
It stated the circumstances.
It asked for to be warm, to have a home, and to be fed. It's not said, it didn't say.
And sometimes what I've learned is it just is about being recognized as a person. Believe it or not.
Well, I know when Laura and those other young folks went to the homeless people on Friday nights and took them food, they had a lot of good relationships with them, and they knew about their lives, and they knew
Yeah, they engage in their
detail.
personhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was more important to be engaged with them personally, and so because it really surprised me that that was their focus. The food was a side piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas was telling me about a program they do at a underprivileged after-school program. And he says, yeah, I just go an hour on Tuesday afternoons and I just love on these kids. And that's what it was. I mean, those were his words. I get to love on these kids. And sometimes it is the power and the present of presence.
It is. All right,
Just like Chris said, it's empathy.
yeah,
The lady,
it's right here in the notes.
yeah, it's
Carlos.
right there.
So
The
wait,
lady that couldn't go to the grocery store gives a $10 tip. The rich person gives it $1 or $2. It's that comparison, and it's a lot because I know I've experienced that in my life too.
But it's no different than my grandmother saying, stop and pray for the person. Same empathy, same
Yes.
compassion.
so
Kathy?
what is the answer? Doesn't God care? I can't read, all the fine print, but you talked about a lot about what we do, but the question is, doesn't God care?
Yeah, and he does, and Thomas Aquinas, we're a funny bunch, we human beings. We all have free will, which does marvelous things and terrible things at the same time. When free will works to the benefit, we think it's a fantastic idea. We think it's great. When free will is not advantageous to whatever we think advantageous is, we wonder why God came up with such a concept to begin with. Thomas Aquinas said this when asked about free will in the 13th century in the Summa Theologica. He writes this. He said, God gave us minds to think, hearts to love, hands to serve, and the will to execute them to his glory and purposes. So the answer to your question, Kathy, is why won't it work, is because there are many human beings that do not use their minds to think about the things of God, do not take their hearts to serve the purposes of God, do not use their hands for the servitude of God, yet alone execute will for his purposes. And that's the problem.
I still would like $10 million.
I'm sure that's the solution.
Right.
I do like the priest who stands up for his sermon. He says, I found out what the problem with the church is. He pulls out a mirror.
Yeah, that was Benedict Rochelle, the great Franciscan friar. On a Palm Sunday retreat about 40 years ago, he stood up in the great marble pulpit at the college, and he said, "The church is a mess. The world is a mess." And he looked just like out of central casting, like a monk. And with that, we thought he collapsed and had a heart attack. He dropped below the pulpit, and it was a huge marble pulpit with, oh my God, because he was very emphatic when he preached. And so everybody's thinking, is somebody going to get up and check on him? And like a jack in the box, he springs up and he's got this mirror, and he goes, "This is why! This is why!" We were quite clear he did not have a heart attack. Anyway, next week, David, next slide, please. We'll skip this. This is a scene from Les Mis, which is about mercy, but you can, I'm way over time. So, the gospel is good news to the poor because it tells of God's love. Here you go, Kathy Smith-Duguay. And yes, the gospel is good news as it encourages poor and troubled communities to address the challenges they face. But one very significant way in which the gospel is good news to the poor is that it calls all of us who are wealthy and influential by world standards to change our hearts and to change our behavior. This seems to be the message, I think, of Luke 13, 1 through 9. So that's the practical answer to what you asked me, David. So next week, we're going to talk about being free in Christ will free us for others. And it will free us systemically. It will also free us interpersonally. But if we're not free in Christ, if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. John 8:36. And if that doesn't happen, none of this changes. your sister-in-law's relationship with you won't change, your son's relationship with you won't change, your relationship with the poorest of the poor won't change. It'll all stay the same. This has to happen first. Those chains have to be broken. Amen? You strive to get another one. We'll have Compline real quick, if that's okay, and if anybody would like to, we want to thank those who did soup tonight, which is you, Colonel, and so thank the Colonel and thank Elizabeth Brookman.
And thank Roberto for bringing cake.
And Roberto baked the cake.
He takes the cake.
He takes the cake, and thank you, Rose, for